On the last episode of Menace, the Ken story, Ken came home from prison and realized the complexities of finding a job. He was feeling dejected and a bit down on his luck when he made a store run and ran into Hot Boy. Initially, he wondered if things would be uncomfortable as their last interaction hadn't been pleasant. But after a warm reception from Hot Boy, all was well. Later that night, Ken went over to Hot Boy's place where he received the lowdown on everything that happened while he was gone. Apparently, the crew had been completely disbanded. Mike and Tommy went their own way after a dispute with Rob. Adrian caught a charge, which resulted in Rob's incarceration. But the biggest news was the fact that Shalonda had ended up with Antonio. And after something went terribly wrong, one of his girlfriends killed him in front of Shalonda. Hot Boy told Ken that Shalonda had married a rich white man, which made him feel that he would only be holding her back if he tried to reconnect with her. So he decided to wash her out of his mind. Again. And now, Chapter 22, Trying, narrated by Shandora Warren. I took that information about Shalonda and put it in my pocket. A deep pocket and a pair of jeans that I wouldn't wear for years. Meantime, in between time, life went on. For the first time in my life, I had a real job. I started working with Hot Boy at his home improvement business. We did everything from painting to flooring to plastering walls, you name it. Hot Boy did most of the technical stuff, like wiring, but he was showing me how to do it, so it was cool. We bonded over something different. We had started out as two teenagers who were riding around, smoking weed, selling weed, and getting girls. That's all life was about in the beginning. By that point, we were both in our latter 20s. Life wasn't all that different, though. We weren't riding around selling weed, but we were definitely smoking our share after work. As for girls, that really wasn't that different for Hot Boy either. Hot Boy had a couple of women that he was dealing with. He went to their places when he wanted to see them, but he never brought them to his. I guess old habits really do die hard. As for me, it was a different story. If I had been the Ken from back in the day, I would have been laser focused on Shalonda. But it was a different time, and she was deep in my pocket somewhere. I was doing my thing. I was a single man doing what single men do. And Mia was there. I don't know. I both love and hate the fact that Mia was there. She complicated things in the best and worst of ways. I had been home for over a year, and everything was good. I was still living with Mom and Pop, so of course I was helping out at the house. I was dealing with Mia, so I was kicking out a little cash to her, and I was still trying to stack my money so I could get my own place. Things were tight financially, but I was committed to doing the right thing, so I made my peace with it. But then, Mia. The thing is, Mia was cool. By that point, I had been dealing with her for like 3 years, 2 of which I was locked up for. We connected while I was in prison. She was fine, and I liked her personality. She was fun and flirty, and she always had a funny comeback. When I came home, she showed me some things that I wasn't even thinking about before I went to prison. I was a young dude when I got locked up, and I was dealing with a young girl. Shalonda didn't know anything about sex, other than what I showed her. But Mia, my goodness, that was a whole different ballgame, and I was more than willing to play. But that's just it. I just wanted to play. Even with all the things I liked about Mia, I didn't want to be with her. And in the beginning, I didn't even know why. I just knew that I didn't want to. Quite often, my mind would drift back to the conversation that I had with Kenny on the day that he died. We were at the mall, and he was giving me advice about girls. He said, "We're young, and we have a long time before we need to be settling down. But this is the trick. Every girl you deal with got to know their place with you. That's how you keep it from getting messy. If you meet a girl and you just want to sleep with her, don't promise her anything other than that. If that ain't enough for her, let her walk. You can replace her. You ain't got enough energy to treat all of them good. But if you find somebody that's worth it, Treat her better than you've ever treated anybody else. You ain't even got to be faithful to her, but make her feel like she's the most important thing to you, and she's going to return the favor. And that's what I settled on with Mia. I didn't want to be in a relationship with her, and I didn't tell her that I wanted to. I wasn't faithful to her, and I didn't tell her that I was. I didn't tell her that I wasn't, but I never made it a part of the conversation. I didn't love her, and I didn't tell her that I did. I allowed us to just be in some undefined space where we never had to explain what we were, because I was comfortable with that. But all of that came crashing down because Mia got pregnant. Ugh. Let me say this. I was approaching 30, and most dudes I knew already had a few kids. I was aware that I was probably a bit behind in that regard. And it's not that I never wanted to have kids. I just didn't want to do it like that. I wanted it to be with somebody that I wanted to be with. I wanted to be with my kid's mother, get married, build a life with someone. I wasn't trying to just patch it together, but it was too late for all that. Mia was pregnant. And once she got pregnant, she wanted to have the inevitable, where do we stand conversation. I was honest with her. That's not who we were. We were not two people who were madly in love and building a life together. Her response surprised me. She asked, "Can we try to be?" Can we try to be? Mia wanted to know if we could try. I took some time to think about it, and I was like, why not? Mia had a lot going for herself, and I really did like her. I knew for sure that there were dudes that would love to have been in my position. So why not? What was the worst thing that could happen? Since that point in time, I've learned not to ever ask that. I moved in with Mia so we could try. And by try, I mean that I was living in the same house with her, but I still wasn't faithful to her. It was real cool in the beginning. It was comfortable, but not deep. We laughed a lot. We watched a lot of TV. Everything felt like it was something new, like it just started that day. We didn't talk about each other's past. We didn't even talk about the future. It was just like we were there together, and every day was its own thing. I watched Mia with her son Malik, and I knew she'd be a good mother to my child. Yet, it felt completely separate. We didn't feel like a family. I felt like they were something separate, and she and I were our own thing. Her son was a cool little dude, but he was like 5 at the time. I didn't know him, and he didn't know me. But suddenly, we were a family. It felt strange. I always hoped that he didn't sense that in me. I never wanted to make him feel like Pops made Kenny feel. I kept hoping that the situation would grow on me. It eventually did. Months passed, and Mia started getting further into her pregnancy. We found out that she was having a girl. That changed something in me for a reason. I think it was the understanding that I owed her something. I owed my daughter something. In spite of what I've been through growing up, I felt like I was strong enough to take it, but I didn't want my daughter to ever have to be that strong. I wanted her to see something good and stable. I never wanted her to watch her parents the way I used to watch mine. So I decided to try. For real. Like, really try. I decided to be in a real relationship with Mia, not cheat on her, and really try to be all in. And the fact that I really tried is what eventually ticked me off. Man, that lady was problematic in the worst of ways. It started off so small, just minor inconveniences. I'd be at work, and I'd get a phone call from Mia asking if I could stop for something on my way home. Those were always the days when I had already mentioned that I'd be doing something else after work. Yet, those were the days where she just had to have something from the store. But she was pregnant, so I indulged her. When I get home, she just wanted to sit up under me for the rest of the night. I couldn't stand it. If I ever made it out of the house, I'd be subjected to random questionnaires all night. Where are you? What time are you coming home? Where have you been? What are you doing? Etc., etc. I never had a moment's peace. And if I didn't answer my phone, we were definitely going to argue when I got home. I remember arguing with Mia one night and seeing her son come into the doorway. I remember how I felt when Mom and Pops used to get into it, and I didn't want to do that to her son. So after a while, it seemed easier to just go home. But when I was at home, Mia wanted to argue then too. I'd never seen anything like it. I kept going back to the fun Mia that I knew in the beginning. In my mind, I was thinking she was probably just hormonal because of the pregnancy. Now I know she was literally just crazy. My daughter was born on September 8th. Her name was Kennedy, and she was the most beautiful and most perfect thing that this world has ever seen. When I saw her, I felt like every bit of it was worth it, even being stuck with Mia. But that feeling was short-lived. Not the feelings about my daughter, but the putting up with Mia part. It definitely wasn't the hormones. I finally understood how somebody like Mia had stayed single. No one could have put up with her for long. It wasn't just the arguing. Mia was confrontational. She was loud and angry. She was the type of woman that would get all in your face and dare you to hit her. And when you'd leave to let the situation calm down, she'd spend the rest of the night calling your phone. I was a calm dude by then. If she had gotten the Ken that was hurt, angry, and full of cocaine, she would have gotten far more than she bargained for. But I wasn't that dude anymore, and I didn't want to be. I wanted to chill out and show my daughter something different. But Mia was making that impossible, and I was miserable. Even when it was good, it was bad, because I was always thinking about how bad it was likely going to get. It was never good for long. I just shut down and started running on autopilot. I was there, but just like a machine. I went to work, paid bills, picked up the kids, etc. Me and Mia had sex. Good sex, but I didn't love her. I couldn't. She made that impossible. A couple of years later, things really hit the fan. If you remember, I met Mia through her cousin Black, who was locked up with me. Black came home about a year after me, and he went back to New York. Well, suddenly, Black popped back up, and he needed a place to stay. I was all right with it. Like I said before, Black was cool. We had gotten pretty tight when we were locked up, and he was Mia's cousin, so I even talked to Hot Boy and got him to agree to give Black a job working with us. But when he got there, it was obvious that he wasn't trying to do anything work-related. Well, not legally. Of course, that caused friction between me and Mia because I wasn't trying to be anywhere around that. And when there was friction between me and Mia, there was friction between me and Black. We were arguing like every day. Mia would tell me to get out, but if I acted like I wanted to leave, she'd tell me that she wasn't going to let me see my daughter. That's why I said I loved and hated the fact that Mia was there. She complicated things in the best and worst of ways. I loved that she was there to give me my daughter. That was the best complication that life could have given me. But everything else was the worst. And when it came down to it, the smallest of things broke me. And when I broke, the situation with Mia broke. We had a decent day that day. Ma had both of the kids. Black was out, and me and Mia were just chilling. We weren't even arguing that day. We cooked dinner together and everything. We sat at the kitchen table and had good conversation. We laughed. It almost felt like it did in the beginning. I thought to myself, I could do this. If this is how it could be, I could do this. But then, something happened. The radio was on while we were eating. Suddenly, Where Do Broken Hearts Go by Whitney Houston began to play. That was Shalonda's favorite song. I immediately got a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach. I felt guilty for some reason, and I wondered if it showed on my face. I looked at Mia. She was smiling and singing. I didn't plan the words, but they came out anyway. With no effort on my behalf, my mouth said, I can't do this. Do what? Asked Mia. And even though I hadn't planned to have that conversation, the words came right out. This relationship. I can't do it anymore. I'm sorry, I just can't. Initially, Mia asked why. She asked if there was something that she could do to change my mind. When I told her that there was nothing she could do, Mia went off. She started crying and flipping everything off the table. I hadn't ever seen anything like it. I tried to calm her down, but there was no use. Mia wanted a confrontation at that point. She started trying to fight me. She ripped my shirt off and everything. I knew I needed to leave. I couldn't take the chance of things escalating and me going back to prison. So I walked away. Mia stood at the door and yelled at me, "You will never see your daughter again." At that point, it almost seemed worth it. To be clear, our breakup wasn't about Shalonda. Well, not really. That moment just cleared something up for me, and Shalonda was at the root of it. When it came down to it, I did not love Mia, even after all that time. What I had with her was toleration, at best. When Mia approached me with the idea of us trying, I never really wanted to. I settled on it because I wanted to give my daughter something stable. But by that point, Kennedy was 3 or 4 years old. I had spent that entire time finding ways to get away from Mia. I find myself hanging out with Hot Boy or telling her that I had to do something for Mom and Pops. I hadn't ever been much of a bar guy, but I even started going to bars to watch the games just to be away from her. Even when we were at our best, my thought was, I could do this, not I want to do this. Like I said, our breakup wasn't about Shalonda. When that song came on that day, it just made me think about her. Thinking about Shalonda made me realize that I knew the difference. I always wanted Shalonda. I was a 16-year-old boy who had access to any girl I wanted, but I couldn't wait to talk to her at 10 o'clock every night. When Shalonda's stepdad beat her up, I went and purchased things for her to be at my house because I wanted her there with me. When she moved in with Sharon, I wanted her to live with me. I wanted her to quit her job and allow me to take care of her. It never felt like a chore until my own demons crept in. I never felt like I was tolerating her. Shalonda was my safe space, and I was never running from her. When things were bad for me, I wanted to be wherever she was. Even when I was mad with Hot Boy the night of my Labor Day party, I wanted to clear the house so I could just be with her. The cocaine had me tripping, and I did some bad things to her. But there was always an intense love at the root of it all. I always loved Shalonda and wanted to be with her, even when I swore I hated her. I was never going to have that with Mia, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I left Mia's house with nothing but the half a shirt that was on my back. I went to Mom and Pop's house and hugged my baby girl, hoping that it wasn't going to be the last time that I saw her. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to follow Shenny Tells a Story on Facebook and Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to purchase books by Shandora Warren, they're all available on Amazon in ebook, paperback, and some in hardback formats. Please like and follow this podcast and share it with your family, friends, and frenemies, because all relationships matter, even the toxic ones. Thank you so much for helping me to create the world that I want to see. Oh yeah, you're welcome. Shine, little girl.